tips for studying for exams is to make sure you know what kind of things you need to study for in the exam. For example, if they have past exam papers that you can look at, I would definitely print those off or use those to kind of gather and look through and see if there's any common themes, because that's what really helped me when I was studying. I would also make sure that you have a study and a social life balance, because you don't want to burn yourself out. You need to make sure that you're eating properly and socialising and making time for your family and friends.
The tips for studying for exams for NTA, probably past papers. I really like doing past papers. I found that's always worked for me. And not spending too long on one subject. I find if you do a little bit on one subject and you come back to it, and you'll find you remember a lot more than you did if you just tried to spend 5 hours straight on one.
It seems really obvious, but don't cram study, it doesn't work. I used to laugh at people for telling me that, but it's true. If you can begin studying as you go or earlier, it really helps with the stress as well.
Get onto it early. I found that studying for exams that it gets really stressful and I got really emotional and anxious. And the best thing I did for myself was set aside time, plan for it early. I actually got into meditation and that helped so much. And also just don't sweat the small stuff. Like, it's really important to do well in your exams and feel proud of yourself, but also don't destroy yourself and your sleep patterns and stuff, because it's all going to be okay.
Thinking back to year 13 for studying, I think definitely planning ahead is so key. I think so many people just sort of tend to wing it when they go into it, but I think if you can set yourself out a really good guideline with different goals each day of what you perhaps want to achieve, all within reason, I think that is really helpful with sort of setting yourself up with a good idea and a good plan and a good time frame, most of all, of what you want to achieve and when certain things are due, and just makes you really accountable.
If I could talk to my year 13 self now, I'd tell myself to go hard and go early, which is something we've heard a lot of recently. If I could do that, I would feel a lot more comfortable going into those exams, and I'd be able to manage my stress a lot more easily. Going into university, being able to manage your stress is a massive help. The way of learning here at university does change quite a lot, so being able to get on top of that early makes such a difference.
My top tips for studying for exams is to make a study plan. Teachers always say to make a study plan, but they never really show you how. What I always did was allocate some time for studying, and then for each of those hours, assign that hour to a certain thing within a certain subject. Like for English, if you're working on your externals, write an essay in that hour for one of the externals, and it really helps.
To manage my stress, like I mentioned earlier, I do like to go hard and go early. That does reduce the workload coming into those exams. Being able to work with friends and bounce ideas off each other makes a big difference as well. It's a really collaborative style of learning, which is something that I personally really enjoy and find quite stress relieving.
To manage stress before exams, I find it easier to break down the big things into smaller little tasks to do, and prioritise what's worth the most to me or is worth the most in weightings, and work on from there.
How I manage my stress before exams, just getting regular sleep really. I find if you start cutting into the night too much, you just get really anxious and worried about that exam. So just take things as you normally would for school day, and I think that works best for me.
I manage the stress that I get before exams and during exams by taking the time out of my day to actually do the things I love as well. Studying is really important, but it's also really important to keep that balance in your life. The more confidence that you have in yourself and the more organised you are and you're prepared, the better your outcome is going to be.
I manage my stress before exams by starting early. It's one thing that I've really learned coming to uni, is that starting early saves you so much time because you're all prepared and you're not having to cram anything last minute.
I think managing my stress before exams, I really make sure to take the time out to do things that I know I enjoy that are outside of study and not involved with that at all. I think that really helps me balance out things and make me feel sort of more control and like I've got a better gauge on the situation. I think it's really important that you give yourself lots of rest and really good food and enough sort of chill time to make sure that when you are back in the study mode that you can really focus on that.
How I manage my stress during exams and before exams is just getting as prepared as possible and make sure that you're getting enough sleep. I know that exams can be super stressful, but if you don't get the adequate amount of sleep before, especially before an exam day, it's just going to add extra stress. So make sure you get the amount of sleep, a good amount of sleep, and eat a really good breakfast or lunch before you have an exam, because that's what will help power you through. Also, don't sweat the little things. Exams, yes, they are important, but they're not be all end all. Just make sure you give it your best shot.